Yeah, man. Well, hey, man, we at it again, man. At it again. Hey, hey, hey. As we know, life is full of surprises, both good and bad, and the day-to-day journey is full of unforeseen obstacles, and sometimes it's hard for us to see our way through. Beyond the norm and mundane are where unscripted dreams live. Join us for thought-provoking discussions and interviews to help us navigate through the fog and create our own path. We are the Unscripted Dream podcast, operating outside the margins to motivate and inspire our audience. So, um, today's episode is titled "A Seat at the Table," and there's a few talking points, or there's a few ways that you can go about processing or speaking on that as having a seat at the table. What does that mean? Ideally, it's like a concept, a thought-provoking concept that can pretty much be approached from all types of angles. The first one I would like to touch on is barriers and overcoming them. So pretty much what the phrase and what it represents is like you overcoming obstacles and breaking through certain barriers. Ideally, or the most relatable would probably be societal barriers. So,
Yeah.
like say that you were part of like a movement, like let's make a good example here. Think about the civil rights movement, a call to action there, or like what's that, the women's suffrage, like a movement like that, where you have a group of people that are just not going to let certain laws dictate them anymore. They feel like that they deserve some type of respect, just because they feel like they're doing their fair share as far as building up their communities or actually contributing to the greater good, so to speak. So when people normally have uproars like that, whether that may end peacefully or unpeacefully, the whole idea is their presence is heard to a point where the powers may be at the time respect them enough to have a seat at the table to kind of reformat, how can we work in this group of people or person, as far as having a seat at the table. Um, I don't want to go off to the deep end, but I want to just say overcoming barriers is a big part of having a seat at the table. It's no different than you joining a group of members or joining a membership, whether that may be like a fraternity, sorority, or even a team. Like let's go back to basics when you're a kid and you join teams. You're not always welcomed or embraced because you have to earn your keep. So
Yeah.
once you earn your keep, that's when they're like, all right, you a big dog now. You can sit at the table and call the shots. Anything else you want to elaborate as far as overcoming barriers in order to have a seat at the table, Marcus?
Well, sure. So just to start off, as far as barriers that exist, I think there's there's a few ways to think about this. So the one question that I ask when if you're looking at, you're trying to get a seat at the table. I mean, it's an old saying, but we know what it means. You're trying to get it's really a form of acceptance, pretty much. Like you're waiting for people, or you're trying to get acceptance to get access to something. And these barriers exist. There's gatekeepers with everything. So when we look at these barriers, it's important to understand that there's certain things that have always existed. Like some of these things are they're like human flaws. They're things that people do. So there's always going to be people who are greedy. There's always going to be people who try to do the right thing. There's always going to be nefarious people. There's always going to be thieves. There's always going to be people who just like to help people out the goodness of their heart. All these things will always exist on the spectrum. There's always going to be somebody who's hungry. There's always going to be somebody who's selfish because it's a human characteristic. As long as there's people, we're going to have this issue. There's always going to be somebody who has access and are withholding access from other people. I've never really seen a movement where everybody was liberated. There's always someone who's remains in the confines of some system. And some systems, even new systems, create new prisoners to an extent, your
Absolutely.
your imprisonment looks different. Uh, so so just saying that and thinking about that is that it's important to understand that there's always going to be innovation. There's always going to be disruption. So whatever exists today, the world that we live in today, it didn't exist 50 years ago. And the world that we'll live in 50 years from now is going to look a little different than how we live today.
A lot
So,
different.
there's always, yeah, it'd be interesting. Be old if I'm still alive, right? Be
Right.
interesting. But, but I think in understanding that is like, I really want to understand and explain just that is that why are we inclined to want to be accepted by particular groups, and why do they have the permissions, and are they on such a, I guess, such a pedestal that we're seeking that seat at the table, like we want to be where they are, and why is that versus we just want to do our own thing and create something for yourself, or a group of people that have a similar interest. I think that's really I guess that's more the question. Like the question that I have, Joe, I guess I'll just ask you is that where do you feel, or what do you think about just like some of just, I guess, some of the systems as far as like just having barriers in place just in our society, and then like transitioning out of that. Like if you're not interested in that, like how is someone, what would you recommend or say to someone who's trying to get out of that system or find like or create something for themselves?
Um, First and foremost, if you want to break the mold, right, and break out of a system placed with certain barriers, first you got to understand the history and how did we get to this point. I think once
That's
you
good.
figure out the history and once you get to that point, it'll be easier to navigate and really milk the system, is what they like to call it. Uh, I'm not going to talk about no trade secrets about people being on governmental aid and getting over. Okay, this ain't what this about, but but I'm just saying that people have their ways of milking the system.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, if you really want to make a difference, um, I think one of the hardest things to do is to rally people to support your movement. It's definitely going to have to be something in the benefit of everybody as a whole nowadays. Just
That's
because,
tough.
yeah, it's very tough. Just because that's the type of people we're raising nowadays. What's in it for us, rather than just thinking about the whole, the whole perspective, like the whole, like everybody as a whole. Everybody's kind of like very close minded, in my opinion, about um, how we all can basically live together under one umbrella. I'm trying to be broad. I'm not trying to go into nothing like race or religion or anything like that. But I think history is a very big, or the biggest piece that you need to understand. And the way to navigate from that, I think, is basically a play off of how you got there. Yeah, I don't know if you're involved with politics or anything like that, but the way politics is ran, unfortunately, it's a dirty game. So it really depends on what level and what exactly you're trying to do. If you're just trying to do something within your community, um, it's more doable rather than trying to change things on a global standpoint or a national standpoint. Like for you to make a difference in a national, let alone a global standpoint, you damn near have to be like a rock star, a movie star, or something like that. You just have to have crazy following in that sense, and it's kind of hard to do just because all the people that have that level of attention or that many eyes on them, you know, they got so much going on. It's like some of that stuff is like kind of mischievous, and even the people that are there for the right reasons or claim to be there for the right reasons, somehow some way they're always involved with something mischievous just because their name is so big. So um I'm kind of losing my way in that just because there's a lot to go down there, and I'm not trying to really expose myself in a way where there will be a huge debate over it. But just check your history, man. And once you know your history and how people got there, and also understanding why certain generations are a little bit more um, biased in certain ways compared to maybe younger generations, I think you'll find the answers you're looking for as far as how to move forward with things. If you haven't noticed, a lot of the younger generation is noticing that more so than previous generations or older generations. It seems like we're a lot more open minded to our awareness is a lot higher than theirs as far as making a difference or change or standing up for ourselves. So uh just believe that within the next, I'm calling it, within the next decade or two, this is going to be a very different world. But Marcus, I don't know if I fully answered that question too. That
No,
was
it was
really
good. No, that
that
was
was
good.
that was tough, man.
That was good. I'll keep it moving though. I'll keep it moving. So that's good insight, Joe. I wish we could. If this was a long form episode, we could expand, but not today.
Absolutely.
Not today. So I just wanted to focus on next, just understand it. And Joe, you kind of alluded to this as far as like everybody getting a significant amount of people on the same page. So the power of just community and building something that you can kind of establish with other people with similar interests. So I think that every generation, every era kind of just provides different opportunities. So before, think about it, there wasn't really a way to have fractionalized ownership. If you're not familiar with like a real estate, what fractionalized ownership is that a group of people could own a house. Like that's possible. So that's just explains itself, right? But but the issue is just when you're looking at that is that that opportunity didn't really exist in the format it does today 100 years ago. So that's a new opportunity. Now, in understanding that, to really take advantage of some of these opportunities. So the when it was easy, like maybe easier, couple generations ago to maybe purchase land or real estate, like when it was easier to do it, that was an opportunity for those people that were in their prime during those eras. But now that ownership looks different because these people, a lot of these folks have established themselves over the past century, and I mean they're heavy. They're heavy in the real estate space, and just in,
Yeah, it went from residential to now commercial probably at this
yeah,
point.
so or residential's owned by corporations, like
Yeah.
So yeah. So keeping that in mind is that, and this is going back to what Joe said, is that it's your community. So I look at who's I looking at? I was looking at Mr. Beast. If you're on YouTube, you know who Mr. Beast is. He's one of the top YouTubers. This man has food chain. He
Yeah, I
does
was gonna
these.
say that's the guy that be cooking them ribs all the time, right?
I don't know about that. I don't know. Joe, I'll send you the video after this episode. We probably need to attach it to the episode so people can see exactly what I'm talking about. But like in the YouTube era, right? The YouTube era created a whole different type of celebrity. YouTube era didn't exist 50 years ago. So when we're looking at community, and what I want to share about Mr. Beast is that, like, being very successful, as successful as he is, there was a time when he wasn't successful. And I was watching the video, and he shared how when he was a small YouTuber, him and a few other YouTubers got together, small YouTubers, so they formed a community. And what they would do is they would spend all day, pretty much for a significant period of time, going through thumbnails, reviewing trending videos, like seeing what was grasping the audience's, like, their attention, seeing what got the most views. And they would even, he was saying they would even, like, if they thought their content was trash, they'd be like, hey, your content's garbage. But they would tell them that they were honest with each other.
That's
But
what
they
you need.
formed a community. And now the thing about it is that, like, Mr. Beast has essentially built this empire, who's like, he's extremely successful. And now he's the blueprint. Like, Mr. Beast is the blueprint. People look at what he does and they try to emulate that. So what I'm trying to explain is that he built a community of people, and it wasn't a lot of people. And that's why I think that sometimes we're getting too many people involved in what we're trying to do. And that's what hinders the growth. Because I know I could be like, hey, Joe, I got this real estate thing that we can do. We need to find like 2 or 3 more serious people. And then we can start making some substantial investments. But when you get to like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people, it's like, I don't know if these people are going to be serious, and I can't vouch for those people. So it's like it starts to dilute your potential when you try to kind of bring everybody in too at the same time. And it's like, I only want to work with people that are focused and can stay consistent and are serious about what they're doing. But when you try to, and that's the thing, like Joe, what you were saying is that the problem is you're trying to get everybody to a shared cause, but it's too many people. Like, I think it gets to a point where it's too many people and you can't make progress because it's too many cooks. It's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah, man. I think that that's very important. Like I was saying, as far as like people with amplifying voices, like you said, Mr. Beast. He put himself out there, and he amplified his voice by figuring out via trial and error.
Yeah,
He was active listening to what people were saying in this small support group, and he created a platform for individuals who like food, who don't like food. So, they took it and ran with it because he figured out the trends and what to say and all the tags. And, it's just like anything over time, you learn to master your craft. It's not something that's just going to happen overnight. It's the same stuff that we do, over the past 3 years, man. We done evolved exponentially, whether we realize that or not. Our content and what we talk about and how we're showing you it can be done. It's totally different than when we first started. There's a lot of pauses and a lot of ums and a lot of disconnect there, and wasn't as structured as it is now. So, all I'm saying is sometimes you have to to let time run under some of that development there in order to create that change. So when I say creating a change, the best way to do it is with someone like Mr. Beast, where, you basically leverage his um, power, so to speak, his influence, you know, to put on the next person. And that's kind of how things happen. When people come into the light, you don't just make it out of nowhere. It doesn't happen like that. Usually, somebody with some type of level of influence takes a liking to you, or maybe they don't take a liking to you, but maybe they hate you and they pretty much blast you out on their own YouTube channel, right? And someone blasts you out so much, they don't realize that they're giving you free promo. So
yeah,
people tune in and be like, well, hey, I actually like this guy better than the guy I've been watching. So let me focus on him or her. So, I've seen things happen like that. So whether it's good or bad energy, or negative or positive, whatever you want to associate that with,
yeah.
uh, that's what happens. And that's all it takes to create change. Power is shared. It's never really like created. So I think that's something that people need to understand. Like, in order for you to get some notoriety, you gotta pretty much get, some kind of respect from somebody that's in a position of power higher than you. That's how that works.
And because I think I'll close on this. And because, and that's why when we're looking at, you're trying to earn, if you feel like you're trying to earn a seat at the table, it's like, well, you can build your own. You can do it. It's possible. But the way in which you achieve it is going to look different. Just like the ways people can make money now, work remotely, you're on the internet, you're making money. That didn't exist. That didn't exist. So now there's new leaders in this space that are like running a content creation game. And those aren't the same people that run real estate or run financial markets and things like that. It's an entirely different opportunity that was presented. And now there's people who, I mean, they carry significant weight there. So it's really an opportunity to really see who and analyze your circle. I don't know. I disagree. Like I don't know. I try to keep it tight as far as like who I particularly like introduce to things or want to be, go into a venture with, just because I know like people are people for all the reasons I said earlier, is that you just don't know if sometimes if people are silent, and there's always like there's different levels, but we don't know. I don't think we always have to seek acceptance with already established groups, but we can establish our own.
So in other words, challenge the status quo. Um, that's what I'm getting off of that. And, reevaluating traditional systems or how we measure people in power, to kind of spring forward. I think what really helps out with that challenging the status quo is, as people, we always like to change. And sometimes newer perspectives or newer ideas at the time or within that era time frame seems more reasonable than what's currently going on. People always want something new, How many times have you actually like looked on social media and you're just like, man, I see the same stuff, see the same stuff. And then you finally see somebody doing something different. And it's not even that it's that cool, or, it's not something that you ain't ever done yourself. But the fact that they're doing something totally different is your interest. It piques your interest. Great example. There's this guy, um, I freaking hate his videos, but I can't help but watch them because it's something so different. There's this guy that I don't know if he's self-proclaimed or if he's actually a licensed bartender or anything, but his thing is he likes to mix a bunch of liquors together, and he puts a bunch of different like outlandish fruit or like a jug of like fruit punch in there, and like he puts all kind of like fruit juices stuff and like that. And I'm just watching, I'm like, oh, this is horrible. Like I would never try this, but I like watching it because I'm just like, okay, what will he think of next? I've seen this man put gummy worms in there. I've seen this guy put every fruit known to man in his drinks. And the one thing that really kills me is some of these drinks he puts in the sink of his kitchen. And I would never do
Ooh,
that.
all right. That's wild.
I would never do that. But, a lot of people watch it just because, they like getting those ideas of like, this sounds terrible, but let me try it just because I never thought of making this concoction myself. Lo and behold, I had experienced this thing called college. Some of those things that he's
Yeah.
tried, I've done myself, minus the sink, but I've mixed drinks where I was like, I think that this might taste good. I've done that with food. I did that, like made my own hamburger helper many a times and added my own little concoctions to it. So all I'm saying, man, is like just the fact that you're seeing something different from what you're normally seeing rather than like that TMZ or shade room type crap. Sometimes you just wanted something fresh. And some people know when to punch in, and sometimes they punch in at the right times and they take off. That's how that works. When you think of Mr. Beast, I think that he strategized himself to the point where he knew like, hey, I'm the only person that's really doing this in this manner. I can really make a push. All I got to do is polish up a few things and make it look a little bit more professional, and I can take off. It's simple as that, man. If you're doing something different or something unique, how come you can't push your agenda forward? How come you can't challenge the status quo? And like I said, it doesn't have to be something like never unheard of or unthought of, but at the time, it may be something unique and something refreshing. So that's the type of stuff I would like you guys to walk away from when I think of having a seat at the table. That's the kind of stuff that'll take you, that will allow you to have a seat at the table. How many people have done things where like, okay, it's 2023, right? How many people have like basically, I'll give you a great example, music wise. So when you think of like hip hop, so people with hip hop right now, I can't stand today's hip hop. It's freaking terrible. But there's a few artists out there that literally got their style or their complete music vibe and beats and all that kind of stuff from artists in the 90s or 80s. And it makes them stand out, even though it's kind of like recycled as far as uh, their style and how they do all of this or whatever, but they sound so great or because it's already something that's already been mastered. But not only that, they sound different than, everybody else that's making this crazy music right now. So that's what puts them ahead of everybody else just because they're just in a whole different lane. Like they have a whole different style. So don't be afraid to dare to be different. Dare to be different. That's what I want to say. Dare to be different. And that can definitely push you forward as far as having a seat at the table.
Let's get out of here. Thanks for listening. Where's the content? TikTok, YouTube, post some stuff on Twitter too from time to time. Check it out. Thanks for listening. Take care. Be safe.
Later.
Gapstone.